Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lights on Data show. Very excited to be here again after a couple of weeks hiatus and to address this very important topic on the 5 data trends that are shaping the future of the payment industry. And I have this wonderful guest, Jodie Kelley, who's the CEO of the Electronic Transactions Association, or ETA, which is an association that's representing the payments technology industry. Jodie, welcome to the Lights on Data show.
George, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, you have more than 25 years of experience managing and providing strategic guidance to large organizations. And in your current role, you're serving as the voice of and representative for the innovative and dynamic payments ecosystem, among many other things. And I'm very curious in your current role, what have you seen really as some of those most significant data trends that are shaping the payment industry?
Yeah. So to take a step back, the payments industry is one of the most interesting industries that people rarely think about, right?
Hmm.
When you think about how you go about your daily life, you go to the grocery store and you pay for groceries, you get in an Uber or a Lyft and you go from one place to the other. Payments enables all of those experiences. And when it's working well, which it does pretty much all the time, you don't think twice about it. But payments, that experience has changed so dramatically over the past 5, 10 years. And it really is powered by data, right? Data really is the underlying engine that has enabled those changes. So if you go back some time, payments used to be made with what they called a knuckle buster. You put your card in and the clerk looked up the number. But think about it now. Now we are tapping our cards to pay, and that happens in seconds. We have payments that are embedded in apps on our phones that we use all the time, and we have payments that are becoming embedded in things like cars, or refrigerators even. And again, all of that's powered by data. So lots of trends, but it's interesting to take a step back, I think, and think about how much the experience has changed in ways that consumers love, and that help businesses grow as well.
Right. Yeah. Just making it easy for everybody and enabling a lot more activities and services and products to be delivered, used, and it really facilitates that transaction aspect for sure.
Absolutely. And so when you think about consumers and what they want, so what you and I want, right, when we go about our everyday business, we want an experience that's streamlined. We want it easy, right? We want it to be simple. We don't want to have to think hard about it. But we want and expect, and we should expect that it's secure as well. This is our money we're talking about. And so as much as it has to be easy, it also has to be secure. And increasingly, we want it to be tailored, right? Like we want this to be an experience that is good for us, and that we're not getting a lot of extraneous offers or information or having to go through a bunch of steps that aren't relevant to us. And so you see payments evolving to meet that. And
Hmm.
again, it's all powered by data. None of these streamlined, secure, tailored would be possible without the rich data that underlies the payments experience.
Have you seen any changes on how the payment processors are leveraging data to stay competitive in the market with these new changes coming up?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a very competitive market, to your point. And so, increasingly we're seeing products developed that meet consumers not just where they are, but where they want to be,
Mhm.
right? And they're leveraging data to be able to do that. So, for example, I talked about streamlined experiences. So think about, our experience at a merchant, like at the point of sale. We go to buy a pair of shoes, or we go to, buy our groceries again. Pre-pandemic, we would typically either swipe our cards or we would insert our cards. In the pandemic, tap to pay took off. So you could either tap your card or you could tap your phone. And that is quicker yet. If you're tapping your phone, you don't have to fumble with your wallet and figure out where you stuck your credit card. And for that to work, the data, the information on the transaction has to go from the point of sale through the merchant's bank, through the network to my bank, and then back with an authorization. And it happens in seconds.
Hmm.
And that all relies on leveraging data, right? And not just the data that's transmitted, but the ability of the authorizing bank to use data to immediately make sure, you are who you say you are, you have the credit that you need to complete the transaction, and that it's a secure transaction. And again, it happens like that. And if it doesn't, we're frustrated, right? We want
Right.
it to happen that quickly. But it is leveraging that predictive data capability that allows that to happen and create a seamless experience.
Right. Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up that security piece because that's on top of mind on everybody, and we're seeing an uptake in breaches overall. So obviously, we want to be careful on this sensitive data being transferred in a secure way, so that both parties are protected.
Yeah, security is critical. I mean, when you think about what allows this ecosystem to function so well, security is at the heart of it.
Hmm.
I am not going to go kind of tap my card or, PayPal or Venmo a friend or engage in any other experience like that if I don't have confidence that it's going to be a secure experience. This is my money, right?
Yeah.
After all. And there are kind of two aspects of that security. One is, again, are you who you say you are, right? Can I be sure, if I'm the authorizing bank, that this is not a fraudulent transaction, or how do I do my best to make sure of that? And then the other aspect of it is, are we keeping your credentials and your data safe, right? Because we talked about how there's that data flow that goes through every transaction, and over the course of that flow, is it safe? How are we protecting against breaches? How are we protecting against bad actors trying to insert themselves in it? And both of those are really critical aspects of security. Um, and again, both of them, it all comes back to data, right? It comes back to all of the data points that help us ensure you're who we think you are,
Yeah.
um, and then the way we transmit the data to make sure it's secure.
I'm very curious, and I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but and maybe too much into a detail. But I've noticed in the U.S. there's still heavily reliance on signing that receipt at the end when a transaction is being made, and not so much in sort of the rest of the world or Europe, Canada, even. And do you know why that would be? Is that just slowly changing as
I,
well in the U.S.?
I actually think it's just slowly changing in the U.S. It's interesting when you look around the world at the different ways that different countries or economies pay, right? How you
Hmm.
engage in payments. It depends a lot on like how that industry grew up in that country. So here, we started with credit cards, and we talked about that kind of knuckle buster system that very much involved a physical signature, and you look up the card number to make sure it hasn't been stolen. And that, and now of course it's all digital, but that signing component, it's habit in some ways.
Right.
I mean, it really is. And we are slowly moving away from it here, and it's not actually required in most instances, but habits are hard to change, and it's just kind of the way that things have been done.
Definitely. I wonder if it's in transition from the checking system and how people used to pay by check a lot, and so that sort of transferred over as well, and that's why the habit continued.
I mean, and you're right. We sign, well, to the extent we write checks anymore, we sign the checks. Yeah.
Right. Right. And by the way, whenever I do sign one of those receipts, I never put my signature on it. I just scribble something
Yes.
because I'm always curious to understand if it will ever come back to me and I'm being asked, "Hey, was this you? It doesn't look like your signature,"
Yeah.
but so far it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I suspect it won't. So,
What about data analytics and data science? Do you see a heavy use of that
yeah.
in the way payments are being processed, managed? That whole logic behind it, and trying to look for uh, trends, but also trying to see maybe there's a pattern that indicates that this is not who the owner of the card would be.
Absolutely. So we see data analytics and data science in a number of areas, and I'll mention a couple. But you were right to put your finger on security, right? That is a place that the payments industry has for decades used data analytics,
Hmm.
but now can kind of leverage, AI and kind of both the quantity of data that exists and the ability to quickly process that data
Right.
and look for patterns in ways that are much more sophisticated than they used to be. And they need to be, because the fraudsters are also getting much more sophisticated than they
Yeah.
used to be and using those same tools. The average value of attempted fraud increased by 70% in 2020 during the pandemic, and we're still seeing it go up. So, a huge area of focus. So not only is data analytics being used in security for things like, in predictive ways, like, and again, in seconds, right? Like, I look at this transition. Is it coming from a geographical location that I wouldn't expect from you? Is it the type of transaction I wouldn't expect from you? Is it of a size that's outside the norm? All of these little flags that are analyzed and put together before that decision is made to either authorize or decline the transaction. And of course, you don't want to decline real transactions. That's frustrating to people. They're
Hmm.
trying to do something, they can't do it. But you do want to catch the fraud. So data analytics are being increasingly used. Data in the form of biometrics is being increasingly used.
Hmm.
If you are paying through, a phone like this, there's an extra layer if you were scanning your face to unlock your credentials. So that's another way that data is being used. And data is increasingly being used in some really interesting ways. So for example, for certain types of transactions that are large, where people call to confirm, one of the things that they're doing is finding ways to not only check to see if the voice, is the voice that you expect on that confirmation, but they're using data to figure out, when I'm speaking to you from this office, my voice bounces off the surfaces in a certain way. If
Mm.
it's not me, I'm pretending to be me, but I'm somewhere else, it's different. And so there's some really interesting and sophisticated ways that data is being used and analyzed in an effort to help ensure security, to try to make sure that whoever is authorizing a transaction is who they say they are, um, and to kind of eliminate that, to the extent
Right.
possible, that fraud.
And I guess that's real worry, right? Because with AI, Gen AI, and how we're seeing voices being emulated and even faces, videos impersonating an actual person, it's becoming more and more of a threat.
Yeah, it's a real threat. I mean, like I said, the fraud actors are very sophisticated, and they're leveraging the same tools that we're using on defense. And so, so it's constant. It's not going to slow down. It's not going to stop. But being able to really leverage and take advantage of every data point we have to
Hmm.
help ensure that you're who you say you are is going to be critical going forward, as it is now.
Right. Right.
And I'll
And
give you another example real quick of data analytics. We move off
yes,
security
please.
for a minute because it's really, I find it really interesting and fun. So, as merchants are trying to reach their consumers in ways that are a good experience for the consumer, they're looking to understand more about you and what you're interested in, and kind of, serve that up to you. And data allows them to do that, and consumers love it, particularly, when you look at the behaviors of Gen Z consumers. They really want things to be tailored to them, easy. They don't care about the platform, they don't care about who's doing the process, right? They want to be able to get what they want quickly and easily, very little friction. And so, data analytics allow for these tailored experiences that people are really responding to, well. So good for the business, good for the consumer. And then, of course, as we've talked about, with that added, important layer of security.
Right. We've seen this story a few years ago where the Amazon physical stores adopted this, very sophisticated technology that you didn't have to tap or anything. You just pick up your products in your shopping cart, walk out the door, and they would know what you bought and how much you need to pay for, and they would extract that of your own account. And then it was revealed, well, actually, there's just people being paid to watch cameras of customers and trying to determine what they're picking, what the prices are, and then they will be charged manually. So it was more of a manual process than a technological advancement one. But do you see in the near future this actually becoming a reality?
So I think what we will see, I don't know if it'll be exactly that, but I think we will see increasingly the purchasing experience becoming, working really hard to make it less and less friction laden, right? So really trying to make it simpler. So going from needing a credit card to needing a phone, to being able to just use your watch. You don't even have to get your phone out, or a ring. There's palms, so that you you don't even have to have your ring or your watch on, right? Like you can scan your palm, it's connected to your credential. So anytime you try something new, like that experience, you're going to learn, right? You're going to find it's actually harder to track the products than you thought, or you can hide a product under another product,
Hmm.
and so that doesn't work. um, but the trend is clear, right? The trend is, okay, if that doesn't work, what's the next step? And to your point, is you're right, it can't be overly manual, right? It can't be manually intensive. So you figure out how you leverage the technology, and to make it easier and faster for the consumer. And some of that, I talked about it earlier, is going to be built in. So like my car now, when I am low on gas, it tells me that, which happens way too often because I don't pay attention to the gas gauge. So it says you need to go get gas, and it will direct me on my map. It'll say, here's the closest gas station. My next car will almost certainly also pay for the gas, right? I'll pull up to the pump, I'll get gas. There'll be a transaction that I don't even have to do anything with. The payment will be made. I will drive off. And like I said, we're seeing that with things like washing machines. Like it's out of detergent, it orders the detergent and pays for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything, and it's all just designed to make our lives simpler, right? More streamlined, easier, and have the payments part of that just happen naturally, as part of it.
Yeah. As long as I don't need to tap my washing machine every time I would need to use it, then that's good.
Exactly. No tapping of the washing machine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What about the regulatory pieces and the challenges that come with that?
The regulatory pieces are important and the challenges are real. So when you think about, how payments are innovating and how data is kind of helping that, think about things like, we've talked about a lot about credit debit, and we've also talked a little bit about some automatic payments. But, I think now we have credit debit, we have, Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, where we are paying each other. We have options like buy now, pay later, that we can use to make payments over time. And there's a regulatory overlay to all of these, as
Mm.
there should be, right? This is people's money. People are moving their money. It has to be done in a way that is secure. It has to be done in a way that consumers are protected, but it also has to be allowed to be done in a way that allows for innovation. Our industry is most innovative there is, and you see that in the kinds of things you and I are talking about, and so that balance has to be struck correctly. And right now, things like open banking, which will allow account to account payments, directly from one account to another, are the subject of a regulatory rulemaking. And again, that's appropriate, but it has to be the balance has to be struck correctly, for the industry to really flourish. And industry wants to and needs to work closely with regulators. There's real challenges, things like what push payment fraud, for example, where people actually authorize the payment, right? So let's say it's on one of like a peer-to-peer network, Zelle or something else. They authorize it, but it turns out that the person to whom they're sending is not who they said they were,
Mm.
or the product that they said they were getting is not actually available or real. Or we've all heard about all the scams that are out there that cause people to send money, So there are real problems, but there have to be real solutions, where there's kind of realistic responsibility on both sides, to help, help stem, these particular challenges. And that's a regulatory overlay that's critical, just critical.
Right. Right. I'm curious about cryptocurrency. If do you see that in the scope or future scope of ETA?
So, we have been involved in the cryptocurrency and the digital currency conversations for some time now. And we have a set of principles that we think that a regulatory framework should encompass. And one of the principles on crypto in particular is you need to regulate it according to the use to which it's being put. And if you look at, cryptocurrency and payments, there's actually not that much of it. Crypto is still largely held as an investment vehicle. People buy it and hope it continues to go up in value. It's pretty volatile, and then sell it. And you see some use in payments, but not a lot. And that's in part because it is so volatile. If you own a pizza shop and, at lunch I come in and buy a pizza and pay in cryptocurrency, like you want to know that by the end of the day, it's going to be worth the same amount, but it may
Hmm.
not be. And it may
Hmm.
be worth a lot more, but it may be worth a lot less too. And so, it doesn't really seem to have yet found a solution to solve that kind of gets over some of the negatives. Having said that, it's clearly not going anywhere either. And so, we remain in those conversations. There are other digital currencies like stable coins. They're tied to the dollar. There may well be, in fact, I suspect there are going to be payments uses for those. And then there's an ongoing global conversation about central bank digital currencies. So does the government issue the dollar in digital form, for example? Not a lot of momentum in the US, but a lot of momentum around the globe. And so we're involved in those conversations as well. It's an exciting time to be involved in digital anything,
For
right?
sure.
Because
Yeah,
there's so much happening.
for sure. So looking ahead, do you believe there will be some, I don't know, some other significant opportunities and challenges for the payment industry in leveraging data to drive that business growth and innovation?
Yeah, yes, and I think there's both opportunities and challenges, right? There's the sky is the limit, and as
Mhm.
we engage on AI, which is really a data thing, right? It really is. Can you leverage data that exists to innovate, to drive increased security, to make a better consumer experience, to solve problems for businesses? Um, not only do we need to get the technology right, but we need to make sure that, to your point, from both a consumer expectation and a regulatory front, we're getting that right. So, data privacy, huge issue for regulators, huge issue for consumers. And so making sure that we're striking that balance between taking the data we have, using it for good, for innovation, for security, for experiences consumers want, but in a way that they're confident. You know,
Right.
the this is core information. This is what I'm spending money on. This is things that information that people can be very sensitive about, and so striking that balance correctly is important. And AI, you can't leverage the promise of AI until you get that privacy part figured out. Um, and we're, I think, at the beginning of that. There's a lot of conversation happening, but not a clear path yet.
Right.
Um, but the technology is fabulous. I mean, both the AI technology and the technology that's driving payments. And you can see how much has changed in a short period of time. And that's going to continue. The opportunity is certainly there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing what else is coming up. I'm also very curious about ETA. And by the way, anybody that wants to check it out, do so at electran.org.
Mhm.
Do you have any other collaborations with similar associations around the world?
Yeah, so we work with associations around the world, and we work with other associations here as well. So if you think about the payments industry, it's a very complex and very dynamic, but very complex industry. So on any one, transaction, like the ones we mapped out at the beginning of our conversation, you'll have typically two banks involved, you'll have a credit card network involved, you'll have a processor involved. And so we work with bank associations, for example, that represent financial institutions, of which, are also members of ours, with everybody just trying to get this balance right. And then we also work with other associations and institutions across the globe. So, we have coming up a one-day event that we're doing on payments in Latin America. And we are partnered with fintech associations in Brazil and Mexico, for example. Um, because as we talked about, payments has evolved differently in different countries and
Hmm.
very differently in some countries.
Hmm.
And so having that local connection is really critical. I'm leaving this weekend for London. We'll do an event in London where we partner both with EU and UK-based associations on payments issues there. It is truly, a global business. Payments don't stop at borders. And hopefully we'll make it easier for payments to flow across borders over time.
Definitely. That will help all of us for sure. Well,
Yeah.
Jodie, thank you so much for being on the Lights on Data show, putting the lights on the data trends that are shaping the future of the payment industry, and making things easy and simple for us.
Thank you, George. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.